Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I'd like to kind of step out of the proverbial Pandora's box. Today, I'd like to discuss a growing concern within the occult community and basically discuss things that took place in the past compared to where they are today. So, let's begin with the past. In the past, there have centuries, way in the past, about 500 to 1,000 years ago to 2,000 years ago, people truly believed in the occult. They believed it so much that they went to those in authority, those in such as priests, monks, uh, witches, warlocks, and sorcerers alike. I mean, even the Bible speaks upon Nicodemus going underneath the cloak of night to speak with Jesus Christ. Okay. And this is not the only type of thing that we see. A lot of time, there's a lot of myth and a lot of legends that discuss within history itself that literally shows how individuals of an opposite or a polar opposite, I should say, religion or philosophical status will go to another under the cloak of night, under falsehood, under penalties of lies, um, where they will go to someone and say, "Hey, you know, um, even though I'm this kind of religionist, what do I have to do to be in yours?" And in the past, it was more of the fact that they would introduce their doctrines. They would introduce their philosophical belief systems into a new region. And a lot of times, we see this within the works of Raymond Buckland, Witchcraft from the Inside. We also see it within Farah's work of Satanism and demonolatry. We see it again in witchcraft and Satanism. We see a lot of this stuff out of these works, but we also see it out of mythology and mythological aspects within biblicalology. And what's interesting to see here is just like I described with Nicodemus, a lot of people from various different clans, different belief systems would go to a witch, such as the story of the Witch of Endor, which a lot of practitioners of witchcraft believe in. Now, she knew a lot about blood sorcery, her era, her mythology, her ways. She knew a lot about it and how to bring a spirit back through chiromancy. And a lot of these individuals, these practitioners, went for it. They didn't just dip their toe in it under false, impressions. They didn't really buy into it because it was more of a lifestyle. It was a full-on hardcore belief system, much in the same way as the Judeo-Christian churches today. A lot of them will call you a liar, call you Satan, and will sit there and get behind me, Satan. We've already won. Don't you know we've already won? Yada yada yada. And it's like now that in this point of view, it is more of the modern day bullying. Basically, you either submit or you get destroyed. You get pushed out. And what's interesting to see here between the days of old and today is in today's world, a lot of people are more interested in covering their own asses rather than to apply themselves to the arts and the rituals. For an example, I've spoken on this individual and her group, in about a month ago area. And I continue to talk about her from time to time. But in this case, I do want to point this out. A brother of mine, a friend of mine, got their hands on the Children of the Serpent's book. And they actually read it. And they sent me some photos of it. And it was hilarious just to read what was in these pages. It was so watered down. It's like going to a Wiccan party, a Wiccan ritual for children. And that's exactly what it was. There was no in-depth research within any of the topics. There was no research within, or I should say, details about certain rituals or different types of maneuvers within a specific topic. And what's interesting to see here is, much like the story of the Witch of Endor, who utilized blood sorcery and necromancy, this author, Telia Curtis, and her little band of fucktards, and yes, I just called them fucktards because that's all they are. They have no knowledge whatsoever to share with anyone. And the reason I say this is because of the fact that in the past, about a year or so ago, I used to belong to her little band of friends. And this is not coming from somebody that's biased. There's no biasness here. I posted on the political aspects from the United States Constitution. And she claimed up one side and down the other that Satanism is not a protected religion. And I showed her literally the page that I was reading from. Okay, and it came right out of the First Amendment. And it also comes down to freedom of speech. But this is the thing that was funny, is that no matter what we said or what we showed her, she would not submit and actually admit that she was wrong. She couldn't, because she was so prideful. And that's really the only issue I had with her, right up until the point she attacked me out of the blue a few months ago. And I let a lot of that slide. But here's the thing. In the First Amendment, it states that, number one, state and church are separate. But also that if you have doctrine, if you have a foundation, if you have scripture, if you have a following, it is a protected religion. Okay? And she basically blew this off and would not even accept it, even though we showed her physical proof. I'm talking links from Google. I'm talking photos from the book, the First Amendment book that I had in my lap at the time of the conversation. Okay? And this is what I mean of speaking on things that you have zero knowledge on. And what's interesting, and this is where I'm getting into this book, because of the fact that the pages spoke on blood sorcery and spiritualism. She also spoke a little bit about, or I should say, they spoke a little bit about animal and human sacrificing of blood sorcery, but yet there was no details, no nothing. How do you do it? What are the techniques? What is the purpose behind this type of thing? It was so watered down that a 5-year-old could have written it. Okay. And it was more into the formation of a nursery rhyme for a child. So both my two friends and my brother, my brother and the friends and everything, I mean, we had a good laugh over it, because it's basically not worth wiping your own ass with its pages, because that's exactly what it was. So I got to thinking this morning, and about this because we had this conversation last night, and there's a lot of groups out there are, that have basically been following the same pattern, the pattern of herd conformity. Okay, the path of sheephood, because they don't want to step on toes. They don't want to be in trouble, you know. So it's one of those things where if you do something, people are so worried about having a lawsuit planted against them. It's like, it's like all these individuals posting PDF files on Facebook groups. Okay. But yet when you do it, your work is, your posting is basically deleted. And what's interesting here is this morning I took 6 PDFs that I had downloaded from a group that I'm in, and it was actually a new way of thinking within occultism. And on all of these, a couple of these were from S. Connolly, um, Agrippa, down to some black magic and some werewolf stuff, and some rituals and baneful magic type, PDFs. So I posted these in this one group that I've been a member of for maybe, I don't know, maybe a week, just to test the waters, because I wanted to see what would happen in this group. Because up until now, I mean, this group has been pretty cool. I've been an outside observer, just not posting anything, just sitting there. So I decided, why don't I just do this? And I took these 6 PDFs and I put them in there. So the admin basically deleted all but one of them. And this is this fucktard's excuse. Okay. He erased all of them to protect the group. But at the same time, he kept one of them up because it was from 1960s. Was it the 1950s or the 1960s era? And that was something that was humorous. Now, because of the fact that this group follows a strict policy of no plagiarism, or no path of, say, for an example, falsicity. And yet somebody puts forth works that actually are more of the modern day practices, and you're just going to toss them out. And yet you sitting there complaining that this group is about learning. It is education and discussion for beginner black magicians. Okay. But yet you're going to sit there, and when somebody actually puts in actual works from people, doesn't take any form of credibility for it, doesn't even, say it's yours or mine or whatever, and just puts it in there. That's not plagiarism. There's no personal laws that were violated there. But yet you're going to get rid of all that knowledge for your students, for your to cover your own ass. But yet you're going to do that hypocrisy in that dualism and keep one of them, which was based off werewolves. And this brings me into a whole nother topic. For an example, you got kids on YouTube as far as young as, I want to say 5, 6, 7 years of age, talking about vampirism. They're talking about why they got into that path working, why they got into this stuff. And it's like they're not even discussing the arts or the practices of what vampirism is. Now, and I actually posted a comment on one of these, and I said, "Do you have the Vampire Sanguine by Father Sebastian? Perhaps Psychic Vampirism by Michelle Ballinger? The Vampiric Bible, for an example. There's actually two different types that are out there just on that alone. One is from an official order, and the other is just based off vampirism throughout history and through mythology and Hollywood produced films. And it is kind of funny because of the fact that no reply was made. In fact, the video actually was taken off air, which was funny as all hell. And it's the same thing with a lot of these practitioners out there today. They claim one thing, but they do something completely different on the other hand. You want teachers to come into your groups and actually teach about the arts, but yet you don't want them to teach and you evict them. Very interesting within that state of duality. Now, you're basically canceling yourself out. So then you get, like I said, this book from the Children of the Serpent, which was the most recent thing. And it's just nothing more than a laughing stock. That's all it is. Because they sat there and said, well, you don't need blood to commit human or animal sacrificing. You have to sit there and when it comes to baneful magics like for an example, cursing and hexing, you have to ask the victim if they can curse them. It's like you obviously don't have a fucking notion about what baneful magic is about. You obviously have a limited Google search perspective on what baneful magic is and what it's capable of doing. If I curse someone, I'm not going to sit there and talk about it. I'm just going to do it. I'm not going to give you the heads up. But yet, they talk about being attacked. They sit there and talk about other people. They tend to accuse other people, playing the Hebrew variation of Satan, known as Ha-Satan, the accuser. The Islamic version, known as El-Shaitan, the opposer. And yet, just with what I just said, you could easily look up on Google. But let's get into mythology, get into angelology, get into demonology. Where does this come from? What was his rank? What order is he from? What is his official standing? Well, I can tell you right now, in the Grimoire of Armadale and the Magus, Volume 1 and 2, he's known as a witch father. He's known as the witch father, the creator of witches and warlocks. He is a member of the Grigori, which is a formation of watcher angels. And Satan's name itself goes all the way back to the 10th century, which is very interesting because in the 10th century, there's actually a depiction of him standing on the top of Mount Hinnom with his giant black wings stretched outward, and every order of angels hanging off him. Biblical, Satan walks into Jehovah's kingdom and accuses it of mankind of not living right for him. It was Jehovah who sent him after Job and his family. It was him who sent Satan to question and to tempt the man known as Jesus Christ. But yet people don't take this into consideration. There's a whole huge amount of information just on him alone. 1,000 years worth of information. But yet they only touch this. A quick little Google search. I have this brother that lives outside of Seattle, Washington. And he's constantly giving me praise because of the fact that I don't allow myself to be drug into chaos or any form of dispute. If somebody makes it personal, I flat out destroy them. I consider Robert Fraze, who's now in line with and made peace with Telia Curtis and her friends. He went through one of my students and begged her to talk to me about granting him mercy. Ty J. Dawson was the same way. This backs up the Satanic Bible. When struck on the left, smash them in the right. Come as a reaper. And sow what you reap. This is the 21 satanic points in the 9 satanic statements. Anton Zandelavey, Satanic Bible. Okay? Right there, I just gave you a shitload of information within just a couple of seconds. Wow. That's because I've done my homework. I've been around a long time. And to see where people were 20 years ago to where they are now, where nobody wants to do anything, they want everything handed to them on a golden platter. That is something that is not acceptable. I've got all these individuals coming to me wanting me to teach them, but yet they don't want to do the work. They don't want to do anything but just have the handout like Oliver Twist. Please, sir, I want some more. Plain and simple. It's like, if you're not going to do the work, why should I teach? I'm not doing the work for you. I'll guide you to the resources, but you have to be the ones to get them. And what's interesting here is these people are popping up more and more. Plain and simple. I call them sheeple. The fucktards. Because they're fucking up the occult community more and more every time they open their mouth. They're creating drama. They're creating chaos. They're creating division and adversities between different orders. Look at the TST, for an example, going around suing everybody left and right, and yet everybody's giving them praise. I hate to break it to you, they don't speak for me or my order. They don't speak for all of Satanism. Only their own little behinds. They would rather utilize the laws and sue people, which again creates chaos, trauma, and division and adversities. And nothing gets done. When I first started my order, the Order of the Black Thorn, I looked around at a number of different established orders at the time. Orders, temples, churches. And I put the feel out and I asked them, I said, I'm looking to start my own order. Do you have any advice for me that would benefit me in this area? Out of all the places, only one got back to me. And it was the Satanic Brotherhood out of New York. And this is what they said. Whatever you preach, always back it up. And second of all, always make yourself available to the public. To be fair, I understand why Anton LaVey stopped making public appearances. I understand why he did what he did, why he kind of went behind closed doors and kept to himself most of the time. It's not because of his church. It's not went atheistic. It's not because his belief system was challenged. He just got sick and tired of dealing with dumbasses that don't want to fucking learn. They don't want to evolve. So why should we teach you? Why should we share our knowledge with you if you're not going to do the work yourself? And that's something for you to understand and to contemplate upon. Because only you can decide what you're willing to do and how far you're willing to go. Do you want to be like these fucktards who basically touch on topics stating that you need to ask the victim for permission to curse them? Or are you going to be a true black magician or a true sorcerer and just go out and do it? Are you going to get your hands dirty? As they say on the farm, are you going to play in the muck? Only you can decide that. But keep this in mind. If you're going to play the devil's game, you got to take the devil's name. Plain and simple. You look at these atheistics, Satanists out there. Oh, we utilize black magic as a form of bettering ourselves. Really? So basically, you refer to yourself as Satanists in the name of Satan, but yet you deny him his due. You deny him of his name, his power, what he's done for you. This is like saying, well, I want to start a fire, but I'm afraid of the match being lit. I want to learn how to swim, but yet I don't want to take lessons. Plain and simple. And what also within the last 20 years, we've also seen Christian witches arise. We've seen Christian Satanists arise. We've started seeing this whole duality within Satanism and occultism, where people would rather sit there and, how should I say this, create a form of defamation of character, slander each other, rather than to take responsibility and to grow within the arts, share what they know with everybody, what they've studied, put lessons forth, and actually show the newbies, these neophytes, this is how you do this. This is what this is and how it's linked to this. To understand that earth, fire, water, and air are just 4 of the 5 pillars that open the higher dimension of witchcraft known as high witchcraft. They're just 5 pillars that create a whole new pillar. Okay? Instead of going into this stuff, why don't you learn it? A lot of us have given information, sources even. It's like every work that I've done on YouTube or on Facebook, I've always given sources and references to where you can go in, get the material, and actually do your own research to see what you get out of it. But even though you give resources and references, according to Telia Curtis, from the founder of the Children of the Serpent. Wait, scratch that. She changed her name to Petrova. Apparently now she's trying to go Russian. Um, just like Caitlin White, who she's supposedly married to, but yet now they're just living together. Who knows? I don't even think they know what they're doing. But anyways, you could be like Telia Curtis and just put half truths or even a partial truth in there and just fill it in, or you can go out, get the material, and learn for yourself. Apply to the masters. There are plenty of us out there that are well known. They're viewed as some of the top occultists in the world. And yes, I was actually surprised to find out that I was actually one of them. I never really took the time to even realize, my standing in the community. That was more about the arts and teaching, sharing what I've studied and learned. So to find that out, that was kind of interesting. But I mean, I pointed out people like S. Ben Cayenne, E.A. Coetting, J.D. Temple, Frank White, S. Connolly, Michael W. Ford, Turk Suzage, Alistair Notch, Christopher Penziak, Hans Holzer, Paul Huzon. I've given so many good resources and references to people that would benefit them in the long run along the path that they've chosen or that has seemed fitting for them. But yet, according to Telia, I'm a plagiarist. And yet, you go down through all my works. Oh, look at this. This book was by this author. This was this author, and such all the way down. Sometimes anywhere between 6 to 12 references at a time, sometimes more. And yet, you're calling me a plagiarist just to take the heat off yourself and then turn around and steal somebody else's work and make a book and claim it's yours? Yeah. If I had known the person that originally wrote those scriptures in your little book, Telia, you might have gotten away with that. I mean, all you did was rearrange some wording and try to make it your own. But most of that material belonged to a good friend of mine. So yet you can lie to everyone else, but people are seeing you for who you are. So go out there, apply to the masters, read the materials, and don't limit yourself to one sect, style, or form. Get out there and learn it. Not for somebody else, but for you and you alone. Because the left-hand path is for those of individuality. It is not of the herd conformist. And a lot of people that get into these arts are coming from a Judeo-Christian background, such as Islam, such as Christianity. Most of those who have come to me are former Baptists, former Catholics, and Southern Baptists. I've even got a few people that I've known that have been Jehovah's Witnesses that have come to me, and I put them on their path. Plain and simple. I won't do the work for you, but I will show you where to go. But with that said, that's the end of this video. This Dark Sorcerer, what the hell? There we go. I have no idea what I just touched, but Anyways, as I was saying, um, this video is over. Take my advice. Look at the past. Look at today. Look at how we went from where we were when there was actually balls to be a practitioner of some format. Hell, you even got to give Christians, especially the early ones like the apostles, credit, because they actually had the balls to go out and learn and do what they needed to do for their religion. And you're welcome. So really get into, you can always tell the difference between a fake and a real practitioner, because the real practitioners put the knowledge out there. They give you the references. They will always guide you to where you want to be and not where they want to be. They won't tell you who to be friends with, and they won't tell you who you can be friends with. Okay? They will not tell you, well, if you do this, you're going to be labeled an oath breaker, a betrayer, the warlock. Well, you're either friends with them or you're friends with me. You can't be both. You know, a true practitioner would not do that. That's just basically setting up division and barriers and adversities. And that's just going to create more confusion. But as Aleister Crowley put it, do what thy will shall be the whole of the law. All right. So this Dark Sorcerer is out. Enjoy.